Now these cold-hearted teenagers face the life sentence they once thought they could dodge. Shock, disbelief, and a flicker of fear cross their faces as the walls of their freedom slam shut. Watch as the cruel reality of justice finally sinks in, leaving no escape, no excuses, and no way out. Number 10. Lance Dyier. The courtroom erupted in chaos the moment the judge delivered his sentence. It all started with Lance Dyer's sister shot to her feet, screaming, tears streaming, fists clenched. Deputies rushed in, grabbing her arms as she fought them, yelling at the top of her lungs while the bailiff barked orders. The gallery froze. Lance, handcuffed at the defense table, stared straight ahead, face blank. His mother sat rigid, hands pressed to her mouth. Judge Dennis Adkins had just slammed the gavel on an 11-year prison sentence. It started on the 21st of March, 2013, when 16-year-old Lance Dyier was a passenger in a Monte Carlo stolen at gunpoint the day before in Dayton, Ohio. Dayton police spotted the car, leading to a short, high-speed chase that ended when the vehicle crashed into a fence. Dyier jumped out and ran. When Officer Jonathan Sobchak approached with his gun ready, Dyier turned and pointed a loaded handgun at the officer. Officer Sobchak fired once, striking Dyier in the hand. Dyier dropped the gun. A police dog helped subdue him, and he was arrested. A jury convicted him of felonious assault on a police officer and having a weapon while under disability. Lance's mother told reporters she would appeal the sentencing. She is asking why her son is still breathing if he really pointed a 9 at a cop. Number 9. Michael Bargo. In a calculated plot formed in 2011, 18-year-old Michael Bargo engineered the murder of 15-year-old Seth Jackson in Florida, fueled by intense jealousy tied to his ex-girlfriend, Amber Wright. Bargo enlisted Wright, her brother Kyle Hooper, and friends Justin Soto and Charlie Ely to draw Jackson to Ely's house using a fabricated excuse. Once inside, the plan unfolded with precision. Jackson was ambushed, beaten repeatedly, shot several times, his legs and knees deliberately broken with a stick, and his body set on fire in a backyard pit. The remaining ashes were later discarded in a quarry. Investigators would later describe the motive as lingering, bad blood, rooted in Bargo's controlling rage. But how far would that fury truly go? Hooper, unable to endure the pressure of guilt, eventually broke down and confessed to his mother, who immediately contacted authorities. Police searches followed, uncovering human remains and triggering swift arrests. During questioning, the full scope of the crime emerged. Soto stated that Bargo shattered Jackson's limbs in a bathtub. Bargo himself appeared with facial injuries caused by an exploding paint can during the burning and even testified as a witness. A jail cellmate also testified in court, claiming that Bargo confessed everything to him and even bragged about it. The defense struggled under the weight of detailed testimony, and the jury ultimately convicted all involved. Sentencing revealed the gravity of the acts. By a 10-2 vote, Bargo received the death penalty, making him Florida's youngest death row inmate. Others were sentenced to life without parole, though Ellie's conviction was overturned in 2020. Appeals have repeatedly upheld Bargo's sentence, with courts citing the jealousy-driven brutality as exceptionally severe. Number 8. Alexis Avila. On a cold in January 2022, 18-year-old Alexis Avila drove to a dumpster in Hobbs, New Mexico, and callously tossed a black garbage bag containing her newborn baby, wrapped in a cold, wet towel, into the trash like discarded refuse. The infant, still attached to the umbilical cord, whimpered faintly in the freezing air, left to die amidst the garbage. Hours later, dumpster divers, mistaking the cries for a trapped cat, uncovered the shocking truth. It was a helpless baby on the brink of death. One diver cradled the child, kissing its forehead, while others frantically called 911. Miraculously, the baby survived after hospital treatment, but Avila's act of sheer evil, abandoning her own flesh and blood without a second thought, unleashed a storm of horror. Identified through CCTV footage, Avila was hauled in for questioning, where her remorseless demeanor proved what a monster she truly was. She confessed in chilling detail to wrapping the newborn in trash bags, sealing it with a broken hair tie, driving around aimlessly, and finally hurling it into the dumpster. Claiming panic as an 18-year-old who didn't know what to do, she bizarrely insisted she only learned of her pregnancy the day before, despite evidence from her ex-boyfriend, the baby's father, proving she knew since April 2021, which is 8 months prior. Authorities saw through her lies, charging her with attempted first-degree murder and abuse, resulting in great bodily harm. The court drama unfolded with raw intensity. Avila testified, pretending she lost her memory. She even claimed she did not remember giving birth or disposing of the infant, but the prosecution demolished her story, forcing her to confront the damning video in front of the jury. Witnesses like April Meadow, one of the divers, condemned her. She could have taken him to the hospital, a church, or anywhere but throwing him away like trash. The jury, after deliberation, delivered a guilty verdict on both counts. At sentencing, Avila showed fake remorse, which was obvious to everyone. She claimed she regretted missing his milestones and depriving him of motherly love. Judge William Shoemake was having none of it. Avila's evil act scarred lives forever. The baby, named Saul, now lives with his father's family. Number 7. Leonid Gracer. In an apartment in Moscow, Russia, sometime between 2018 and 2020, 18-year-old Leonid Gracer savagely unalived his sister, claiming Satan's direct orders compelled the act. He was found naked beside her body, adorned with demonic symbols painted in her blood. Gracer's evil grin during questioning showed he had no remorse. Instead, he asserted that the killing purged his inner doubts, a twisted ritual of self-purification. Drugs littered the scene, potentially fueling the frenzy, yet Gracer insisted he had full awareness of his heinous deed. After arrest, he was charged with murder, and the courtroom became a circus of chaos. They even had him confined in a glass cage to prevent escape. But this did not stop Gracer's defiance. During a court session, he squeezed through the roof, scrambling into the false ceiling in a desperate bid for freedom. Stunned officers grappled, one yanking his pants down in the struggle, others threatening to tase him. After a dramatic shuffle, he was eventually subdued and made to crawl back, then handcuffed to curb further antics. The drama showed his unhinged mind, turning a solemn trial into a spectacle of madness. Prosecutors painted Gracer as a Satan-worshipping killer. His smile showed how much he was enjoying the whole thing. The defense likely argued insanity, given the demonic claims and drugs, but the court focused on his actions. With consideration to how unhinged he was, the judge sentenced him to compulsory psychiatric treatment every 6 months, which meant he was avoiding prison. This verdict sparked outrage. Was this justice for a sibling slaughter? Number 6. Jonathan Belton. On the 28th of December 2008, 16-year-old Jonathan Belton turned a routine traffic stop in Detroit, Michigan, into a deadly confrontation with Oak Park safety officer Mason Samborski. Pulled over without a license, Belton lured the officer to a nearby apartment under pretense of meeting his mother. A struggle ensued, which led to Belton seizing Samborski's service gun, then shooting him in the head. The officer's lifeless body, no pulse or breathing, bled from the rear wound. It was a cold execution by a teen's hand. Charged with murder and gun offenses, Belton's trial crackled with evil revelations. First responders testified to the scene's horror. There were no vital signs, massive blood loss. But the defense claimed it was an accident. They claimed that Belton never pulled the trigger and suggested Samborski shot himself. But Belton's girlfriend, who was present, shattered the lie. She testified that she saw Jonathan with the gun pointed at the officer. Based on all the evidence, the jury convicted Belton on all counts, murder of a police officer and felony firearm. The sentencing drama peaked with Samborski's widow's unforgiving words saying, "Belton shattered her happiness, and she will never forgive him." Belton tried one last time to convince the court of his innocence, but no one was buying it. He was promptly sentenced to life without parole, which was later reduced to 40 to 70 years due to Supreme Court juvenile rulings. Number 5. McKenzie Shirilla. On the 31st of July 2022, 17-year-old McKenzie Shirilla gripped the wheel of a Toyota Camry in Strongsville, Ohio, her boyfriend Dominic Russo beside her and friend Davian Flanagan in the back. What began as a seemingly normal drive spiraled into calculated horror. Shirilla floored the accelerator to over 100 miles per hour, veering off the road and smashing into a building in a fiery explosion. Russo, 20, and Flanagan, 19, perished instantly in the carnage, their young lives snuffed out. Shirilla miraculously surviving with leg injuries. It was a deliberate act of destruction masked as tragedy. Investigation exposed the malice. Experts confirmed the gas pedal was pressed 100% without braking, proving premeditated murder. Arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder, Shirilla's trial became a theater of deception and heartbreak. A trauma surgeon testified that Shirilla confessed in the hospital that she wanted to die and that it was her fault for killing her boyfriend. Yet her defense twisted the narrative, admitting fault but denying purpose. They claimed that Dominic grabbed the wheel, while Shirilla swerved to avoid disaster. But the prosecution dismantled these lies, emphasizing the video evidence of her purpose and intent, choosing death and destruction. The bench trial amplified the drama. Judge Nancy Margaret Russo declared Shirilla's actions intentional, saying she pushed the pedal to the floor, demanding ultimate speed. Her purpose was to kill Dominic Russo and Davian Flanagan. The verdict was guilty on both murder counts. Sentencing brought raw emotion as Flanagan's sister demanded the longest sentence. Then Shirilla read a scripted letter, apologizing and reminding everyone that Dom was her soulmate. But it fell flat amid the victim's family's anguish. She was then sentenced to 15 years to life, to be eligible for parole after 15. Shirilla's evil smirk in court, if implied, indeed showed her lack of remorse. Number 4. Matthew Borges. In late 2016, a quiet Massachusetts courtroom became the stage for a case that shocked even seasoned prosecutors. At the center was Matthew Borges, only 15 at the time of the crime, accused of ending the life of his 16-year-old classmate, Lee Manuel Viloria Paulino. The court heard how Lee was persuaded to leave home and walk toward the Merrimack River in Lawrence, believing he was meeting friends. Surveillance footage and phone records placed him on that path. He never returned. What began as a planned robbery turned into a deliberate and extreme act of violence. The trial focused heavily on what happened after Lee reached the riverbank. Jurors were taken step by step through the discovery of the remains by a passerby walking a dog, whose confusion quickly turned to alarm. Police described the scene clinically, explaining how the condition of the body pointed to repeated attacks rather than a single strike. Investigators laid out the movements of 4 teenagers who divided Lee's belongings afterward. No forensic evidence tied Borges directly to the weapon, which was a key point raised by the defense. Yet the prosecution built its case around planning, intent, and admissions. But could words alone carry the weight of a murder charge? That question dominated the courtroom as witnesses took the stand. One accomplice described Borges recounting the killing in disturbing detail. A former girlfriend testified about tension and jealousy between Borges and the victim, offering a motive beyond theft. Most damaging was a handwritten journal recovered by police, outlining a sequence of events that closely matched what later occurred. Prosecutors explained how text messages and digital records showed coordination before and after the crime. The defense argued these were fantasies, exaggerations, or attempts to impress peers, but to the jury, the pattern was clear. After deliberation, the verdict came back guilty of first-degree murder under the theory of extreme atrocity. During sentencing, the judge emphasized the calculated nature of the act and the suffering involved, while also acknowledging Borges's age under Massachusetts law. He received life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. The courtroom fell silent as the reality settled in. A teenager sentenced to spend decades behind bars and another life permanently erased. Number 3. Ethan Crumbley. On the 30th of November 2021, 15-year-old Ethan Crumbley unleashed hell at Oxford High School in Michigan, armed with his father's 9mm handgun, fatally shooting 4 students and injuring others in a premeditated massacre. His journal entries and texts dripped with evil, lists of needed gear like pistol mags, mask, knife, and plans for Molotov cocktails. To add to the court's shock, Crumbley confessed to a failed kidnapping plot against a neighbor girl, which shows how psychopathic his fantasies are. He was then charged with first-degree murder and terrorism for the mass shooting, but Crumbley's trial exposed his remorseless core. Even after he was confronted by parents at the station, his only worry was his cat Dexter, named after a TV serial killer. The evidence against him was overwhelming. There was even evidence of him making Google searches on prison sentences. There was also a chili. In court, Crumbley initially pleaded insanity, citing meltdowns he frequently had. A mental health expert deemed it to be psychosis, but a schoolmate revealed bullying as a trigger, saying he's been picked on many times in school. Withdrawing the plea, Crumbley confessed that his actions caused the deaths. Now, things were about to get intense. The courtroom drama peaked at sentencing. Victims' families unleashed fury. One of the victims' mother hoped for a fate worse than death for Crumbley. A father demanded that he be locked up for life, while Crumbley offered hollow remorse, claiming he was a really bad person. He was then sentenced to life without parole plus 24 years. But that was not all. The evil extended to his parents, James and Jennifer. They got convicted of involuntary manslaughter for buying the gun and ignoring warnings. Because of this, they got 10 years each. Number 2. Carlos Himenez and Zachary Tost. In November 2019, chaos erupted outside the Belton Woods apartment complex in Anderson, South Carolina. Gunfire tore through the darkness, leaving one young man dead and another wounded, while two teenagers, Carlos and Zachary, were quickly arrested, accused of playing a deadly role in the shooting. The community was stunned, and the question on everyone's mind was, were these teens victims caught in a violent ambush, or were they participants in a murderous attack? The courtroom the next day was tense from the moment the hearing began. Prosecutors outlined charges of attempted murder and weapons violations, insisting the teens had fired into a car full of people, while the defense insisted they had acted in self-defense amid a frightening shootout. Carlos, barely 17, struggled to hold back tears as the weight of the accusations pressed down. Zachary's parents pleaded desperately, citing medical needs and the teens' youth, but the judge remained firm. Bond was denied, with warnings that every word spoken could be used in evidence. Inside the packed courtroom, emotions surged. Outbursts had to be quieted, and each statement was met with careful scrutiny. The young men insisted they were survivors, not aggressors, while prosecutors hinted that they were active shooters. The peak of the hearing came when Zachary's mother stepped forward, pleading passionately with the judge to release her son, turning the courtroom into a tense battleground of argument and insistence. Zachary himself went further, insisting he was the true victim, while in the background, Carlos crumpled in tears, overwhelmed by the unfolding chaos. Despite their desperate pleas and the emotional intensity, the court handed down long sentences to both teens, leaving the courtroom heavy with sorrow and frustration. Number 1. DeMarco Harris. On Detroit's Rosedale neighborhood in 2009, a robbery attempt by a 12-year-old boy turned into a tragedy that would twist through the courts for more than a decade. What began as a botched theft took a life when the handgun in the child's hand fired during the struggle, killing a 24-year-old woman. In the juvenile courtrooms that first handled the case, the air was thick with tension. Prosecutors detailed the chaotic scene: a planned robbery, the gun's sudden discharge, and the fatal outcome. Defense lawyers did not deny wrongdoing, but pointed to the boy's age and potential for change. Judges wrestled with statutes and precedents about youth culpability, weighing psychological development against public safety. Each legal brief and motion carried weight beyond the paperwork. They carried the future of a young life and the memory of a lost one. At sentencing, the proceedings took a raw, emotional turn. The victim's family walked into the courtroom carrying unimaginable grief, their presence a stark reminder of the cost paid in human life. The judge explained the legal limits of juvenile sentencing, ultimately placing the boy on probation until he reached adulthood, with conditions designed to monitor and rehabilitate rather than incarcerate him indefinitely. This decision sparked outrage among those who felt the punishment was too light, yet it highlighted a key legal principle: that juveniles are constitutionally different from adults in terms of judgment and brain development. Years later, the case resurfaced as the former juvenile approached adulthood. Court dockets filled again with arguments over whether he had met the strict terms of his probation and earned the chance to leave the system. Judges reviewed reports, behavioral records, and expert evaluations on rehabilitation progress. Defense advocated release, characterizing the man as transformed by education and reflection. But can someone shaped by early wrongdoing ever truly leave it behind?